cozinhando ali na sua casa uma refeição normal, o que tem na sua geladeira que a gente não pode saber?
Or make tacos with that salmon the next day. And I think to the extent you can have one meal feed the next meal, it helps deal with the time crunch that most people feel. So we cook about 4 or 5 nights a week, go out maybe once or twice, and that's the way we eat. It's not rocket science. It's the way people have been eating for a very long time.
E uma coisa que salta aos olhos na leitura dos seus livros é como uma associação ao prazer, né? Porque quando se fala de comida saudável, a gente sempre pensa em restrições e angústia, e quanto mais a gente se informa sobre o que tem no nosso prato, a gente às vezes fica mais desanimado a continuar comendo a mesma coisa. Como você lida com essa angústia e com as restrições? Depois de aprender tudo isso, você acha que você se abriu mais ainda para diferentes experiências, ou você tem restringido cada vez mais o seu consumo por uma hiperconsciência daquilo que está vindo parar no seu prato?
Yeah. You know, what I've learned about food has actually in some ways made me more relaxed about eating, especially what I've learned about nutrition, because it really does seem to be the case that, you know, if you restrict yourself to real food, and there's a lot of real food still out there, and you know, all my eating advice comes down to 7 words. I put them right at the beginning of my In Defense of Food. Eat food, not too much, mostly plants. That's all you need to know. That's not very hard to do. Now, eat food sounds hard because, well, isn't it all food? I don't think it's all food. I think the supermarket is full of stuff that hasn't earned that honor to be called food. And so I call it, instead of food, edible food-like substances. And we need to avoid eating edible food-like substances, which is processed food, basically. And I have various tests, so you know which is which. But I think cultivating a relaxed attitude toward food is part of health also. If you're anxious about food all the time, that can't be good for you either. And so if you focus more on, is this real food I'm eating? And the not too much part is hard for people. I think that's a cultural issue that we have to work on because we have been selling food on the basis of quantity rather than quality for a long time in America. And I think it's true here from what I've observed. And that we need to move the focus back more toward quality. And that what you're looking for in a meal is not just lots of calories. You're looking for lots of food experience, that intensity of flavor, that pleasure. And you can have that without eating too much food. But we kind of socialize our children. You know, we say, at least in the United States, I don't know, I'd be curious to know what's true here in Brazil. When our kids are at the table, we say, "Are you full?" That's the wrong question to ask. Because you're teaching them that they should eat until they're full. And if you look in French, they don't ask that question. They say when you're hungry, they say, "J'ai faim," I have hunger. And when you're done, "Je n'ai plus faim," I no longer have hunger. That's a completely different idea. Because the moment at which you no longer have hunger is several bites before you're like stuffed. So the quantity issue is a big one. But I don't see, I was asked this question by a journalist earlier today, that there's a trade-off between healthy eating and pleasure. There are different kinds of pleasure. And there is the pleasure of fast food that many people, especially kids, feel. But if you really pay attention to that food, really listen to your taste buds, you will find that food is superficially attractive. It's the difference between pornography and real sex. It's, you know, it's a synthetic pleasure. Mm-hmm. And when you cultivate your sense of taste, you won't enjoy that food. The one rule I really have is I don't eat meat grown on feedlots in factory farms. And I do this because I've been on these farms, and they're horrible places. And the stink in your nostrils lasts for weeks, and on your clothing when you go there. And so I'm very careful about the meat I eat. And with the result that I don't eat meat as often, because truly sustainable meat is expensive and hard to find. Less so now, but it still is hard to find. So that's the main restriction. But I don't find it very hard to live with.
Bom, essa frase que ele mencionou agora, coma comida, principalmente plantas, e pouco, não é? Eu esqueci a formulação exata em português.
Not too much.
Né? Não muito, né? É o que todos tentamos, eu tento pelo menos ensinar a minha filha e ela não obedece nenhuma das regras. Ela não come tinta, adora besteira, comida industrializada e aos montes, né? Uma pergunta que chega da plateia aqui, da Camila Estima, ela fala: a comida industrializada tem a característica de ser altamente palatável e é uma grande barreira para diminuir o seu consumo em crianças. O que você sugere como estratégia quando reclamam de vegetais que não têm sabor tão interessante e palatável?
Well, I think we face a real challenge with our children because we are not the only voices they're hearing. They're hearing the voices of very sophisticated food marketers. In the United States, fast food is sold to children with toys. So they have come to associate the Happy Meal that McDonald's sells. So they have come to associate eating this food with getting a toy. I don't think that should be allowed. I don't think we should be marketing food to children. Children, by definition, are not in a position to make important decisions about their welfare. That's our definition of children. You can't exercise personal responsibility until you reach a certain age and understand the decisions you're making. Otherwise, you're being manipulated. And these companies should not come between parents and their kids, because that's what they're doing. They're interfering in that critical relationship where you get to teach your kids what food is and what food is not. We did not restrict our son, and he did like to eat at McDonald's sometimes. And this was kind of before I knew very much about McDonald's. But over time, I think we helped sensitize him to the fact that a chicken nugget really isn't very good. It tastes like salt and some synthetic idea of chicken. And that if you talk to your kids about this, you can not argue with them. I don't think you can argue kids into one kind of food or another. And there's a lot of research suggesting telling kids vegetables are good for you is the wrong way to get them to eat vegetables. You just put them out there and make it normal and enjoy it yourself. The other thing you do with kids, I think, is get them into the kitchen. When children cook, which they can do at a pretty young age, I mean, maybe not handle knives, but do everything else, they will eat what they cook. And to children, food is something they don't trust because it's being pushed on them. They don't know what's in it. It's mysterious. But if they cook, they understand it. They see, okay, this is, if you put this plus this minus that, that's dinner. And so I found with our son that the more we got him involved in cooking, the better he ate. And going back even further, when you take a child into the garden and let them harvest vegetables, peas, broccoli, beans, carrots, they will eat them when they see them growing, and they pick them themselves. So give them an investment. And basically, if you don't keep crap around the house, they will not eat crap. I mean, so getting soda out of the house, I think, is critical. I think soda is a tremendous public health problem. And if you don't have it in your house, they will only eat it when they go out to other people's, and it'll be very special. But that's fine. I mean, there's nothing evil about soda every now and then. It's the everyday consumption of those foods that I think is what gets us into trouble. So we shouldn't fetishize it as, this horrible evil you never touch. But you have to put it back in its place as special occasion food.
E uma coisa muito interessante que existe nessa abordagem do Pollan aí, em relação à educação, porque não se trata só de aprender a comer, né, aprender a se nutrir, etc. Mas ele politiza a questão da alimentação desde a própria cozinha, né? No livro aqui que está saindo pela Intrínseca, ele fala sobre a mesa de refeição em família, como chama de o berçário da democracia, né? Então não é só onde você aprende a comer, mas é onde você aprende a conversar você aprende a responder, a respeitar o outro, a esperar a sua vez. Essa politização da comida, do horário da refeição, é uma coisa que vem da sua própria formação? Você em casa teve aí uma super mesa de família para aprender essa história? Como foi?
Well, I was very lucky. I grew up in a house. I have 3 sisters, and my mother liked to cook, and she cooked every night. And every day at 6 o'clock we had a meal. And Fridays and Saturdays they took off and they went out, and we would eat TV dinners and stuff like that, which we loved. But we always sat down together. And the family meal is a very complicated space socially, right? I mean, it's not always peace and love and understanding. Sometimes there's a lot of bickering and fighting, and somebody doesn't like this, and someone doesn't want to be at the table, and someone's kicking the other person under the table. I mean, it's a messy experience, but it's really important because it is, as you suggest, the nursery of democracy. You learn the tools of citizenship. I know this sounds like a very large claim, but you learn the tools of citizenship at the family table, which is to say, you learn how to share, as you said. You learn how to take turns. You learn how to fight or argue without fighting. And you learn how to listen. And you learn the news of the day. I learned about the war in Vietnam from my parents talking about it at the table. And so if you think about it, where else does that happen in your house? Because aside from that table, everybody's off doing their own thing. They're doing homework, they're on screens. This is a time where you can come together. It becomes a center of gravity. And the loss of that center, I think, is leading to the coarsening of our civilization. And when we eat industrially, we don't share. The food companies, that beautiful black moqueca pot that, you eat that delicious dish from, it means a lot. And the food industry wants to take that away. They would much rather that your son ate pizza and you ate a salad and your daughter ate chicken and you each had an individual thing like a restaurant, because they sell more food if they can divide us into demographic niches. The shared pot is a key institution. It puts us all on the same page emotionally. I'm convinced, there's no research for this, but that when we eat the same things, similar chemical changes are happening. Food is a drug too, and it puts people in a very similar space. And so sharing food, which is endangered, traditional foods, which are under threat, need to be defended. And that's why I say in the book that cooking is a political act. It's a very important political act. It's one of the few ways we have to take back control of our diet and to take back control of our agriculture too. Because when you cook, you buy ingredients. And when you buy ingredients, you get to vote for what kind of agriculture you want to support. Do you want to support organic? Do you want to support local? Do you want to support industrial? You can decide. And you lose control of all those decisions when you let corporations do your cooking.
Isso tem a ver com uma pergunta que chegou do público. Aqui tem uma tonelada de perguntas, eu vou fazer todas as que eu puder. O Peter May está perguntando aqui se você conhece... não, perdão, é o José Ferreira. Se você conhece e tem opinião sobre as experiências no Brasil de agroecologia e agrofloresta tropical. A exemplo do pequeno